Hey, it's Reverend Mook here. I'm filling in for Nick of BikeTalk. Today on BikeTalk, we have a panel of guests showing up. Well, not really showing up, but we're going to interview them on the phone via Skype and hopefully through the regular channels here on Kill Radio. Some of the details about the show is we're going to be talking about bike sharing. We're going to have sorry, I'm totally not prepared here as usual. And my computer is not finding the emails that I've been passing back and forth between people. Okay, so here we go. Michael Can, he's on the board of Sustainable Streets, formerly on the board of the LACBC. He wants to talk about the structural difficulty that makes these systems work. For instance, everyone's going to ride the bike share bikes down the hill and then leave them on the bottom for other people to deal with. Symmetry of trip requests. For instance, are you going to want to ride 10 miles one way and then 5 miles another way, but then have to ride 5 miles back? I guess that's what that means. In addition, we have Phil Brock, who is the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation in Santa Monica. And he's seen a couple of these schemes in action over there. So we're going to talk to him because he really wants to have one of these kind of programs over on the west side. We'll talk to, hopefully we can talk to Todd of Baku Bikes. I'm sure I'm slaughtering all these names because I'm not really very good at reading names, as weird as that sounds. But anyways, he works for a firm which proposes bike sharing schemes and around Southern California beach cities. And he's had some success with his work in places like Manhattan Beach. So we'll talk to him and see if some of these bike sharing programs are undermining what he's trying to do. I guess. I mean, I'm not really too researched on this subject, so I don't know. Well, that's why we're having the discussion, because it is bike talk, and it's not really me talking about the bikes. It's the other people. So in the meantime, we're gonna get Michael on Skype here pretty soon. And I guess in about 15 minutes, we'll get Michael on the phone via Skype. And we'll talk about bikes and bike sharing. In the meantime, I guess I'm going to play some tunes off of a 12-inch record that I got. This is a pretty interesting record. Just to kill some time, so y'all collect and listen. This is an interesting 12-inch record I got. It's from the Peekaboo Records label out in Austin, Texas. There's a bunch of lo-fi home recordings, 4-track recordings, that kind of thing, on this, and they're all about bikes. So I figured this is the most appropriate time to play this particular record. I've never actually played this before on my regular show on Kill Radio before, so I don't know if you guys would even like this or not, but it is they are bike songs, and we have a little bit of time to kill before we get Michael on the phone via Skype. So let's hear from Death Valley. I think this is an instrumental song. This is called Pedal to the Moon on Kill Radio Bike Talk. If it would work. Is it even working? No, because somebody flipped the switch the wrong way. Okay. Pedal to the Moon on Kill Radio, which is instrumental. I just had Michael on the phone on my cell phone, but I don't know what happened. I gotta try calling him back because I'm gonna try getting him on Skype here. I guess we could start a little early. I have two sets of watches here in the studio, and they're 10 minutes apart, so I don't really know exactly what the right time is. Anyways, yeah. Oh. Here we go. Let me see if this will actually work. Kill Radio, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Michael.
Yes.
Okay. So, do you want to try the Skype thing, or you just want to go with the phone?
Just with this.
Okay. That'll be fine. You can hear me okay, right?
I can. With whom am I speaking?
This is Reverend Mook.
And who's speaking on the radio?
This is Michael, right?
Yes. Well, my name is Michael, but I hear a different voice on on the radio.
You do. Should be okay. It should be.
Okay, we have a little bit of a delay there.
Okay, yeah.
Got you.
There's going to be a delay.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Are we talking about bike sharing?
We are talking about bike sharing, and it's something that I've actually personally have had a couple of my own opinions about, but I'm really interested in this discussion.
Yeah. I think it's a great item. It has a great positive press, and people are very excited about it. But I'm just not sure if maybe those who do not cycle are more interested in it than those who do cycle.
Right.
So it's kind of like the paradise of cycling from the point of view of the non-cyclist.
Right.
And that is could be something where one wants to have a discussion about it. You know, surely a city is a better city if it has a bike share program.
I would think so. I mean, especially if you're traveling from far away and you need a way to get around the town that's not on the bus or the subway. A bike sharing program would be really great for those traveling.
Absolutely. But if you think a little bit further, then the question is, whom are you serving? You know, you're thinking about tourists or travelers or people who are visitors in a certain location where they can't bring their bike and can't have their own bike, and
right.
And there's a great meaningfulness in that.
Right. Yeah.
And then if you think about it technically, what kind of bike sharing program would that be? It could maybe be located at a hotel.
Right.
And things are relatively easy then.
Uh-huh.
They start to get a little bit more complicated if you have public spaces where bikes are publicly accessible and then need to be returned to that place. Because a bike rental or bike sharing system, which is located at a hotel, you take your bike at the hotel and you bring it back to the hotel.
Right.
Forward. You get a helmet and you get a little bit of leaflet in your drawer in your room, which explains how to cycle in the city, and
you're off on your own.
And you're off on your own, and you bring it back where you got it.
Right. I guess one of the concerns for targeting tourists and stuff like that is you would be, I guess, directly competing against companies like, say, in beach cities that have bicycle rentals around. So, I mean, I don't know what kind of business model the bike sharing program would be. Would this be like a civic thing, or would this be like a private company?
Well, if you look at what we have so far, I mean, what do you call Paris, for instance? You know, we've got the famous Velib bike system there. Is it a private thing or is it a public thing? There, the problems already start to be asked.
Right.
You know? Is it public or is it private?
Right.
What do you say?
I would think it should be a public service. I mean, I'm a cyclist as well, so I'm obviously biased. But
we're all biased.
Other people who paid the taxes might think it's total garbage.
No, but it's a strange mixture of public and private interests because the advertising firm which runs it, Decor is the name, I think, JC Decor, and they enter into an agreement with the city and get certain rights for advertisement for a certain number of years on certain public spaces, and for that they entertain the whole system and maintain it.
Right.
And so what the city is doing is kind of selling advertising space on behalf of its citizens, and in between comes a firm which sees a business opportunity there, and maybe the public is happy about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the public is happy about it, and then
especially if they don't have to put the money up originally to
Yes.
put a system in place, the infrastructure and everything. If a private company wants to go ahead and do that and get their investors and keep it out of the taxpayers, then
But if you go back to Paris and think about what has happened to make that possible, it was a real big deal there, because they changed the infrastructure of the city. They put in bike lanes and circulation opportunities for bicycles next to buses, and they put bike lanes into counter lanes, and they put a lot of money on the table to make that bike share thing and that JC Decaux thing working. So there's a double whammy of public money going into that scheme. First of all, good for them to build out the infrastructure for bicycles. That's always good. But if you don't do that, maybe it's not enough.
Right.
So what you want, it's almost, the question is, putting a few bikes at the street corner does not improve biking. It just makes bicycles more accessible for those who are not afraid to mount them.
Right. Yeah.
And that is maybe, that's a nice service for those who are not afraid to ride a bike in the city.
Right.
But that's not, is that really what we want,
Right.
If we want to increase the bikeability, do we then just need to put more bikes on the street corners, or do we need to make some other changes to the infrastructure, or maybe to the culture, or to the education, or do we need to put in encouragement programs which are totally different?
Right. Me personally, I would think that the city of Los Angeles, for us anyways, in our situation, I would think that we would really need to develop our infrastructure more for bicycles. Kind of like, I don't know if the city of Long Beach actually made a bike lane, kind of like temporary bike lanes, just to try them out.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar to the way that they're set up in Copenhagen, whereas there's
Segregated facilities.
Yeah, like the bike lane is actually totally, there's a giant divider in between the bike lanes and then the car lanes with trees and landscaping and stuff in between them. And so I think if there is some more of that kind of stuff, like more solid bicycle infrastructure in LA, then maybe people would be more interested to use the bike sharing program.
Yeah. This is a difficult area,
It is very difficult.
Everybody, there's these two things, two or three things I know about bicycles. First of all, cars are dangerous, so I need to have my own segregated facilities to be away from the cars.
Uh-huh.
And that, I would say, is prejudice number one,
Mm-hmm.
And second prejudice is people don't have bikes, that's why they don't cycle, so we give them bikes and then they will cycle.
Uh-huh.
Probably not true either, People have bikes. They're standing around in millions in their garages.
Yeah,
And so the first prejudice about the segregated facilities is not really the topic, but really ought to be a topic of another discussion on your show, because there's a great dispute about the benefits of those segregated facilities, and they're kind of inspired by this great fear of car traffic, and create a structure which in itself has been shown to be even more dangerous than cycling with cars on the same lane. And there comes something which is very close to my heart, which is education, which is showing cyclists that they don't need to retreat into their own little presumed safe zone, but that they have at their disposal strategies and maneuvers and ways of cycling and ways of engaging with the traffic and communicating in traffic, which keep them perfectly safe.
Right. Yeah, I kind of agree with you in the sense that bike lanes are actually, segregating, kind of like cyclists against cars.
Yes.
That's like it's a touchy subject.
And really, what we're talking about here is we are in a political situation where communities are thinking about what they can do for bicycles. They are thinking about it. They are adopting bicycle master plans, and they hear us.
Right.
But are we clear what we want to ask of them? And I think we are not, because if you put in $500,000 into a bike share program, that has benefits, certainly. but we need to think about for whom are these benefits? For visitors, for locals, for people who still already have a bike, for people who have never cycled? Or how do these benefits compare to, say, putting 1,000 bikes into hands of people who should have them?
Right.
Because that would be the numbers. A bike share program which has maybe 10 stations with 10 or 12 bikes each could run to $500,000, if I'm not mistaken. And that can buy a whole lot of bikes for people who may actually use them every day.
Yeah, that is true.
And if you don't give away that many bikes, but add a little bit of bicycle education on top of it, then you can equip many people with their tools, both materially and intellectually, and off they go and are safe on the street. This is where I'm coming from. I do agree that a bike sharing program can be a great distinction for a city. It will be kind of the cherry on the cake,
right?
And it will give the city the impression of a bicycle friendliness, which may only be imaginary.
Well, I think the more people who start riding bikes, then it's just you got to change the I guess the
culture.
The culture from the bottom up, really.
And if you put a couple
down.
of those racks down on the street and where people are walking or next to the car parking structures, and people find them and they think about it, and it's a way of telling them
it's okay to ride a bike.
It's okay, or it reminds them of their own bike in their garage or something. That's all good. All good. But except that maybe if we can spend this $500,000 on a different campaign that is a marketing campaign straightforward, it could also work. It's a little bit of complicated way of achieving a marketing goal, but it works. It could work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be really great. My only concerns are just sustainability of such a program. How would a business model be set up? How do business models in other cities like Paris and Barcelona?
Mm-hmm.
How do those compare to some of the things that are going on here?
Yeah, and maybe there will be other people to talk to that a little bit, but usually it's a collaboration with the municipality and some kind of entrepreneur who thinks he can do something for the community and for his own bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question is if it works or not,
Right.
If he can get enough trips onto the bikes. And there are technical questions there which I'm also a little bit concerned about, and maybe we can speak about these shortly. Because if you have a system of bikes, there are two or three systems. One is the hotel bike, basically.
Right.
You take it in one location and you bring it back to that location.
Right. I've been to a hotel that had a system like that in San Francisco.
Okay, so that's simple, that's straightforward, and you may sign a release form of some kind, and that's funny.
Right.
Then there is a system where you have these stalls distributed over the city, maybe 10 or 15.
Kind of like a bus stop kind of.
Like a bus stop, and each of them has maybe 10 or 15 bikes, and you walk up to them, and they're all gone, or they're all broken, or they're all there and waiting for you, and you put in your credit card, and you get your bike out of it, and when you're finished, you need to find another one of those parking places to leave it, and then you have, that's the second kind of system. And the third system, I think this is something where Ryan comes in, and he's developing the technology for that. And there are a few precedents for that. In Germany, for instance, where I come from, that's a system where the bike has its own lock integrated in it, and with the GPS technology, you can find it and leave it anywhere where it suits you.
And you can use your fancy smartphone to find the closest bicycle to you, and then go pick it up.
You would locate the next bicycle. You would walk up to it. You would show your credit card, and you could unlock it and ride off with it. And the next guy would find it wherever you leave it, if he has a smartphone and the rest of it.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool system. I think it. A system like that is much more scalable than, say, the second kind of system where you're kind of dedicated to installing permanent things in specific areas around the city.
Yeah, it doesn't require that kind of an installation,
Right.
but it requires probably a certain kind of density. If you put 5 or 10 or 50 bikes of that kind into a medium city, people don't know where they are, and they don't expect to find one next to them.
Right, they would be, especially in Los Angeles. I could imagine them being completely spread out. You could start somewhere in Hollywood, and then.
And if there is not a certain likelihood that you will find one within a block or two of where you need one,
right,
then you're not even starting to search for it.
That same bike could end up in Venice, so.
Absolutely.
That's pretty far away.
Well, someone from Venice wants to take it somewhere else again,
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if you became accustomed, like, having a bike that was like kind of always around in the neighborhood, and then someone took off with it, and then it's not there anymore.
And what I'm saying is, you need a certain density for that to be a reality.
Right.
And you can't and you use the word scalable. In that sense, that's relevant, because for that system and for any of those systems to make an impact, there need to be sufficient numbers of bikes there to not disappoint people when they want one, because they may depend on it.
Right. Exactly.
And then they get angry.
Right. If they got to go to work and the bike's not there, something they've grown to depend on is.
There was a wonderful essay in one of the last issues of the London Review of Books, in which someone spoke about the London scheme of bikes, and he was very, very upset about not being able to find a bike, but he was more deeply upset about the fact that he felt, and this is a typically British thing, he felt that bicycles are a working class issue. They're working class things. And now he finds these bikes in central London which have the investment banker's logo on it, Barclays Bank. And that just jarred in his mind so badly. He was almost through with his bike thing and hated it for that reason. But that's only by the way. So we have these three technologies. I mean, I don't want to monopolize the discussion here. I've raised some of my questions. I think the question is, the question really is, as bicycle advocates, do we have a list of priorities how we want to spend our money? And or do we just like this and we like that and we like this, And I think we need to assist the communities and the cities and the agencies in telling them really what would make the greatest impact on bikeability and bike safety and this and that would be, and then comes a question mark, Of course, we all want to have a nice bouquet of options,
right?
But if one option costs 500,000 and the next
option
costs 5,000, then you need to make up your mind,
right? Is there one group in Los Angeles that's kind of like setting the standards, like, or making these kind of decisions, or who's pushing for this ultimately?
I don't know. I think we as an advocacy community, we need to have this discussion and think about how we want public money to be spent on bicycle issues, And I would say spending the money on education and on encouragement programs, really pushy encouragement programs, Make a budget and tell me what would it cost to turn 250 car drivers into cyclists,
right?
Knock at their doors, talk to them on the phone, and meet them in the parking structure, and find out what their issues are and help them. And that would be one way of spending money and getting more people out of cars. And now that the oil is coming slowly to an end with all the things that happen in Egypt and so on and so forth, these things become more pressing,
I think for a lot of people, it might even become like something they're going to have to do, if like an affordability thing.
Of course, if the gas price goes where it needs to be, then that would be a great help.
Right. Yeah. It would really clear up the streets of Los Angeles, I think.
Yeah, it would clear up a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
So, but what you said is your question was, who's going to decide what is going to be good for cycling in a
right.
city like ours?
Who's you asked the question, having a list of priorities on where to actually spend the money.
Yes.
How do you, like, where would one start to, develop these lists of priorities and go through them and then reinvent
ask
them?
The bike working group, ask the LACBC, ask all the little regional LACBC chapters which are around and which are thinking about these things in some manner, and try to get a clearer mind about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was struck, for instance, I was attending council meeting here in Santa Monica,
Uh-huh.
and one of our councilors there on the council, apropos bicycles, she said, "Oh yeah, and they have these bike sharing things. I always like them, you know." And then you sit back for a second and you say, okay, there's a politician. She has the power to make a decision over a lot of money, and she, for some reason or other, finds it popular or attractive or feels like Paris or something, and then she will go for that, you know. And so there is a lack of expertise and a lack of knowledge about alternatives. And I think we need to provide these alternatives to the table and tell people that that amount of money could buy so and so many bicycles and so much education.
Right. Yeah. Okay. What else should we talk about?
It's so quiet suddenly.
I know. I was taking notes here. And I was kind of looking over my notes to see if we have anything else to discuss.
Yeah, well, we have many things to discuss, but maybe it's time for some other people to come on board and share their thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I should try to call.
Phil, maybe you want to speak to Phil Brock. He's a commissioner for Parks and Recreation in Santa Monica, and he's a great advocate of these schemes, and it would be interesting to have him speak about these things.
Okay. Well, I'll try to get him on the phone here.
Okay.
Actually, if do you want to try? There's only one phone line here at the studio.
Okay, I will hang up and you give him a try.
Okay. Should I try to get you on Skype? Because I think I can get you on both together.
We can try.
Okay. All right. So.
Thank you, and I'll wait. We'll see what happens.
Okay, we'll see what happens with the Skype. If not, I'm going to try to get Phil. No, that was Michael. I'm going to try to get Phil Brock on the phone here. Phil Brock is the. Again, I'm searching through my emails. Totally unprepared, like usual. Oh, maybe he was listening, and I don't have to call him. Kill Radio. This is BikeTalk.
Hi, this is Andrea White.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Were you listening on the radio?
I was not.
Okay. We just got off the phone with Michael. He was talking about some of the different bike schemes and bike sharing programs and some of their pluses and minuses.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm still trying to I'm flipping through emails and stuff, but
That's all right.
I'm totally unprepared.
Well, I'll try to get on the radio in the meanwhile, I guess.
Okay. So, do you have any input, or do you want to talk about bike sharing, or?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to talk about bike sharing.
Okay. I can't seem to find the email that has. Okay, you're from the Long Beach Bike Station.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I need to know. So tell me a little bit about the Long Beach Bike Station. That's kind of like it's a co-op of like learn how to repair your bike, or how does that work exactly?
So Bike Station and Long Beach is only one of our facilities.
Okay.
It was the first one, but yeah. So the general concept is that you have a facility where you can securely park your bike 24/7. It has key card access. Since lack of secure bicycle parking is one of the top 3 barriers to bicycling always across the country. It's a huge, bike theft is a huge problem, and it keeps people from getting on bikes.
Uh-huh.
And then basically, like at the Long Beach station, it's a very full-service facility. You have staff there. You have repairs and rental and retail, and then you have our staff is able to help you put your bike up on a rack, and you can use our tools, and they'll help you understand how to repair things, repair your bike. And it's sort of like the original bike kitchen in a way.
Uh-huh.
And let's see, and some of the facilities have showers and changing rooms and lockers and things like that. So it's really like almost like a gym membership for bicyclists, kind of providing all of those services that a cyclist might need.
Awesome. How many facilities do you have?
Right now there are 7.
Oh wow, had no idea. I thought there was just a few. So they're all in Long Beach.
So we're based in Long Beach, and the facilities are in Washington, D.C., and Long Beach, and Santa Barbara, Palo Alto,
Okay, so they're
Covina, and Claremont.
okay, so they're kind of spread out all over the place.
Yep.
So what do you think about bike sharing? Do you think bike sharing is relevant in these areas, or do you? I mean, because you work a lot with commuters and stuff like that. How do you see the future of cycling if bike sharing programs are in place?
Well, I think what we're seeing is that there's a lot of interest in bike sharing. It kind of captures the imagination, but it also is just a piece of the puzzle, and we're only seeing really initial results from bike sharing systems in the U.S. One of the most advanced systems, or one of those that have gone beyond the pilot stage and actually has some good data on it, is the one in Washington, D.C., Capital Bike Share, which is, we have a facility there, we have a bike station there, so we work closely with the District Department of Transportation, and we have a lot of overlap, and so I've heard a lot about the bike share system.
Mm-hmm.
And the two actually work in conjunction with another, secure bike parking and then bike sharing. And I think that bike sharing is a great complement to bike parking. And I would say that my bias is, I'm going to show my bias here, that we have a situation where in this country, statistically, most people have have their own bicycles. This country, we're really bicycle owners. And so we need to provide for those bicycles to get those bikes out of garages,
right.
Use those assets that we have, and we know how to do that. We know how to do that. These facilities are really successful. 50+% of people were previously driving when they used the bike station.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, bike sharing serves a different audience. It serves the audience where they might not have their bike at the moment and they need to take a quick trip, or they don't have a bike and wouldn't get a bike, but they might use it. And the success rates in terms of getting people out of cars for the bike sharing systems so far that have reported results on that in the U.S. is somewhere less than 20%. So it's really kind of an additional amenity to the transportation system.
Right. Okay. So just a couple more questions about the bike station that I'm wondering. Is this like is bike sharing program something that you guys would try to do something in parallel with what you're doing now, like a new bike sharing program?
Yeah, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, we operate a small bike sharing system for the city of Long Beach, but the future of this is to incorporate pods of bike parking and bike sharing across cities, making it convenient for people to do either depending on their need for the day. And
right.
We have a pilot project that we were named by LA City Council to be a part of, that is essentially 32 quote-unquote multimodal hubs that include things like secure bike station facilities, bike sharing, car sharing, all of those things that you can access with one membership and make it easy for you to choose to not drive your car that day.
Right. So if someone was interested in bike sharing with the current program that you have now, that you guys are have available, is that expensive, or how much would it cost to do something like that? Like, say if I was a driver and I really didn't want to drive my car anymore because I just worked, a mile or two away, how much would like the bike sharing program be, or how much is it?
So you're looking at from the end user kind of standpoint.
Yeah, like
the membership.
Like, sort of, is it going to be?
Yeah, it's very. I mean, for the end user, bike parking and bike sharing is very inexpensive. I don't know the exact cost, and there are different pricing different pricing schemes for bike sharing, I know, in general.
Uh-huh.
And they try to make it very low cost for trips of a half an hour or less, and then the cost goes up really significantly. And part of that, I think, is to preserve the bike rental market, right? We have a whole set of the economy that does the bike rental thing, and
that
so
was
the bike sharing thing doesn't hopefully
undermine the commercial.
Undermine it, yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing one thing that I wanted to discuss as well sometime in the show is the people who already have commercial bike rental programs and what their thoughts on like a municipal-wide program at the same sense, I guess you could say. So I guess we're gonna talk to some people later who actually run a bike rental. Okay, is there anything else?
No, I think you kind of hit the highlights.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll move on. So it was nice talking with you.
So, is that it? I mean, you be any longer? Or?
If there's anything more you want to say, feel free.
Feel free to call back in. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, call back in if you'd like, because we're going to talk to some other people. We only have one phone line here at Kill Radio, so we can't really get multiple people on the line.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. So if you hear something that strikes your interest, call back.
I will.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. That was wow, the phone's just going off. Kill Radio.
Hey, Phil Brock.
Hey, Phil Brock. How you doing?
I'm supposed to be on.
Yep, that's right. You're on right now.
Okay.
Okay, so you are the commissioner of...
well, yeah, I am a commissioner. Hi, I'm vice chair. I'm Phil Brock. I'm vice chair of the Recreation and Parks Commission of the City of Santa Monica.
Okay.
And I've been spearheading bicycle rental and bike sharing programs and trying to improve everything from bike signage to bike safety in the City of Santa Monica.
Okay. So you have seen some of these bike sharing programs. Companies pitch different ideas to you. I would guess, right?
I've visited several programs in the United States and several programs that have been operating for quite a while in Europe. The best system I've seen so far in the United States in the last few months has been B-Cycle.
B-Cycle.
And B-Cycle's operating in the city of Denver. They opened last May. I was there about 2 weeks after they opened. And they have 500 bikes in 50 stations in the downtown area. They're going to be expanding over the next 3 years to 500 stations and up to 2,500 to 5,000 bicycles throughout their city. They are also, now they've been a fantastic success, 102,000 checkouts of bicycles with the average ride of 2 miles between May and December.
Okay, that's great. So what makes their system work compared to systems that are kind of on paper?
Well, Washington, D.C. system, which the last caller mentioned from BikeShare, was a problem because it was advertiser-funded in exchange for advertising on the city's bus stations.
Right.
And as a result, it only had only brought in as much money as they brought in from advertising. So that system really failed. Washington, D.C. is now starting a second bike-sharing system, which will probably be successful because it's not going to just be advertiser funded.
Right.
So
I would imagine there's a lot of infrastructure that's already in place that they could use from the previous attempts.
They didn't have a complete enough system. They didn't have stations that were close enough. So Denver's system is working because you can check out a bike every few blocks. Denver's system, which I especially like, GPS on every single bicycle. Every bicycle has built-in headlights and tail lights. Every bicycle has a great best basket I've seen on a bicycle. They're 3-speed Trek bicycles. and they all have built-in locks. And the first half an hour of every ride is free. So if you did a microcosm and said you were in Santa Monica, California, and you were at Yahoo Center, for instance, and you're a Yahoo employee and said, I'd like to go to the promenade for lunch. Instead of hopping in your car or not driving because it's going to be too much of a hassle,
right,
you hop on your bicycle, park it at one of the kiosks at Santa Monica on the 3rd Street Promenade or Santa Monica Place.
Okay.
So you've checked in your bicycle. It's taken less than a half an hour to ride it, so it's been free. You ride back to Yahoo, and you have a free lunch ride without paying for parking, without hassling. So what has happened in other cities that have really aggressively done this, from Miami Beach to there's a host of American cities that are starting bike sharing this year. So Chicago is in the process of beginning. Des Moines is starting. Honolulu will have B-Cycle. Louisville is starting a bicycle sharing program. San Antonio is starting a bicycle sharing program. Miami Beach started one last August. Denver has one. Minneapolis has one. If you expand to Canada, you see Montreal, Toronto, and, of course, in Europe, almost every major European city has a successful bike share program.
Right. So are these bike share programs that are being implemented in North America, are these from private companies with specific interests, or are these like government kind of funded?
Well, each city is doing something a little bit different. I like Denver's model because Denver becomes a public-private partnership.
Right.
So Denver's model, the city spun off seed money that was left over from the Democratic National Convention. They spun off $1 million to fund the program. At which point they formed a private nonprofit company to oversee the program, so to absolve city of liability, really. And it's composed of city commissioners, city councilmen, city staff, plus interested bicycle advocates. And they got everyone to sign on to it, and then they got the system running.
Okay. How do you see how do you see Santa Monica's future bike sharing program?
Well,
running?
So far it's been one of frustration because I've been advocating this for several years.
Okay.
This is a program we should already have in shape, especially, to be a little bit, I guess, egotistic. We're Santa Monica. We should have been the first city in the state of California to have a great bike sharing program.
Right.
And usually we're on the cutting edge, and we have a city that is already outdoors conscious, health conscious, and in an area where you can use a bicycle every day. If you look outside today, right now it's 72 degrees on the beach in Santa Monica.
Yeah, it's beautiful outside.
This is our Rose Parade day.
Yeah.
So, I think we are moving toward that. I've been frustrated because it's been so incredibly slow in Santa Monica to get it going, but I believe we can do it. I mean, my goal is 18 months from now to be open with 25 stations throughout our city. And the big question for Santa Monica really is not just Santa Monica's bike share, but how do we integrate it into a regional solution?
Right.
So with the other cities on the west side, I know Mayor Bloom in Santa Monica is going to be working with the other cities as well. And I especially am looking at being inclusive to UCLA, Santa Monica College, Loyola Marymount College, West LA College, and looking at a solution that includes ultimately West Hollywood, ultimately the city of Los Angeles. The ideal would be to have the same bike share system throughout LA County.
Right, so they're all compatible with each other.
Absolutely. So if I wanted to ride from my house in northwest Santa Monica and wanted to ride to Farmers Market on Fairfax today, I would ride down there with a bicycle, check it in, check out another one on the way back. That is the ideal.
Right.
In the meantime, I think Santa Monica has to take the lead in actually identifying the system that we want to use, A, and then B, saying out where we want the stations and how we want the system to work.
Right, exactly. As Michael was saying before, there really needs to be like a set of priorities on like who this is for exactly, how this is going to work exactly.
Well, in the city of Santa Monica, you look at, you have a tremendous amount of, first of all, tourists. And a lot of those tourists are European who are used to using bicycle share programs everywhere. When I was in Denver, I interviewed people who were checking out bicycles, and a number of them were from other cities and said this is a great way to see downtown Denver.
Uh-huh.
So first and foremost, you look at the huge influx of tourists into Santa Monica. They'll use them. Secondly, citizens in Santa Monica, if you have a station, I'll use another example, at Brentwood Country Mart, if you had a station across the street from there, and you wanted to go down to the Wednesday Farmers Market in Santa Monica, you'd be able to go down there. The baskets are big enough. You could fill up your basket with fresh produce and ride home. So I think in Santa Monica, with the fact that we have light rail coming, each one of those light rail stations needs a bike share station in order to let those commuters commute from their house to the bike share to get on the light rail to downtown Los Angeles and back. I think you have a tremendous audience. And actually, we estimated originally 250 bikes. I think within 3 years, you'd like to have 500 bicycles available in Santa Monica. And that you'd have bicycle stations, if you imagine, at every major park, every major point in the city. And then people can ride those, especially with 20,000 students at Santa Monica College.
Right.
Students need to go to UCLA who live in Santa Monica. People who ride just up and down the beach. People who ride through our city. And the answer, I think, one of Michael's concerns, and everyone's concerns, well, you put more bicycles on the street, how do you increase safety? And to be honest with you, if you have a critical mass of bicyclists, it'll be easier for city government to establish dedicated bicycle ways, to establish better signage, and to create an atmosphere in the city where people understand that bicyclists have equal opportunities as motorists do in commuting through our city.
Right.
And it's not a matter of one or the other. I think it's a matter of both. So if we said that we're going to add, within 5 years, you're going to have 1,000 people on the streets in Santa Monica riding bicycles, between bike share and their own bicycles, that they're going to get used to riding to work, getting used to going to the supermarket, get used to doing their short commutes to go to a movie by bicycle in Santa Monica. Then we will create bicycle lanes, both east, west, north, and south in the city, and we will create more bike shares. We'll create a lot of the things that the city of Long Beach is doing right now. And I was just reading a second ago, because part of our commission is health. And it was interesting, I was looking at San Antonio's bike share system, and their mayor, interestingly enough, says that they're going to go from the city's, the program in San Antonio will add to their city's quality of life, make it a more attractive and hipper place. And he was declaring, as Long Beach has done, that San Antonio is going to be the most bike-friendly city in the country in the years to come.
Wow.
And his final quote is, which is very relevant in California and throughout the nation right now, we want to get off the fattest list and onto the fittest list.
I think getting people on bikes is a great way to do that. I mean, I've been able to keep my tone pretty well just from cycling every day to work and back. So a couple questions about how bike shares will affect, rental companies in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that those the people who've made their livelihood off of renting bicycles to tourists to ride up and down the beach on the side or on the bike path over there, do you feel that this bike sharing is going to undermine their business?
Well, the bicycle rental spots in Santa Monica are also part of the food service franchise.
Okay, see, I don't know how it works.
So there's only one bicycle rental, I believe, that is completely private, just south of the pier. The other bike rentals, actually, that's a service of their food franchise along the beach. So look at the people who want to rent a bicycle to go along the Han bike path to Manhattan Beach or whatever for the day may still rent it there. That's fine. I think what it will do is if you're a private bike rental in the city of Santa Monica, and we have gleaming, brand new, beautiful bikes that you can rent, inexpensively through the city bike share.
Uh-huh.
If I'm a private bike share, I'm going to have to get better quality bikes. I'm
Right.
going to have to have better service, and then I can compete.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the free enterprise system. I don't know if we're supposed to just go, well, there's been a private bike rental, and so we can't do a public bike share.
Right.
I think we do a public bike share, and if they survive, then I think they'll provide better services. They'll be the ones who are providing the 10-speed bicycles. They'll be the ones who are providing, more unique bike riding opportunities.
Right.
I think what we're trying to do is
just make like a utility.
Yeah, I want it to be seen as your normal way to get around in the city of Santa Monica.
Right.
Will be through bicycle. We have problems, huge problems with traffic in the downtown area in Santa Monica. And I'm a native of the city of Santa Monica. So I'm one of the people who's always frustrated because it's a city that I used to be able to drive through in 10 minutes.
Right.
And it can now take me 15 minutes, 20 minutes just to get through downtown Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
So with the new parks that we're adding just south of the pier, with the bike sharing systems that we hope we can add, with the light rail coming to Santa Monica, we want to provide a city that 20 years from now will look like a European city.
Yeah, I think
we want you to be able to ride your bike, to walk from Main Street to Montana Avenue, to walk through downtown Santa Monica, to bicycle ride through downtown Santa Monica, and to have that great sense of place that European cities have. Part of the reason crime is lower is because everyone's out walking. Everyone's on the streets.
Right.
And that provides a sense of community
in
the city.
Right, yeah, exactly. I used to live in New York, and when I lived in New York, everybody talked to each other. When I first moved to Los Angeles, nobody really talked to me, or even really talked to each other. It was one thing that I noticed. But what I'm trying to get at here is, there's definitely more sense of community, like when you get out of your car and just start talking to other people. Okay. What are some of the challenges that you're having right now that you're going to have to overcome in 18 months to get the bike sharing?
Well, to be honest with you, our city staff were not focused on bike sharing or bicycles for so long that it was very frustrating for years. I mean, I can give you a great example on the county bike path, which is the beach bike path that runs through Santa Monica.
Uh-huh.
We felt 7 years ago that we needed new signage. That if you are an international tourist, a sign that says bikes or PEDs, nobody from Europe, Asia is going to know what PEDs are.
Right.
So we've been trying unsuccessful. It's taken 7 years to get to the point where people are finally saying, oh, yeah, we need new signage on the beach.
Just to get some signs, right?
Yeah, and to be able to look at it and to extend the pedestrian part of the pedestrian path along the beach up to the North City limit, so that you would continue to have, or you would actually have again a separate bicycle path, separate pedestrian path. So part of this is just taken so incredibly long.
It's probably
people who know me would say I actually had some hair when this started, and my hair is pretty much gone now and turning gray because of this. So I think the tide has now changed. In Santa Monica and cities all through the nation, people are finally recognizing
the need for just having bicycle.
Absolutely.
Period.
And, you can look at, and Dr. Kahn is a great example of someone who's been preaching in the wilderness for years about bicycling, about bicycle sharing, about all the different things he feels that need to be done. Now, he's never going to close the Santa Monica Freeway and make it all bicycles. I know he said that once. But we want to have the equivalent of a bicycle freeway from downtown LA to Santa Monica.
Right.
You want to have safe places for people to ride, and you want to make sure that bike sharing, et cetera, will go. Santa Monica is finally going to institute a new revised bicycle master plan in the next few months. We encourage everyone to have input on that. Our city right now, we will have next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, at the Ken Edwards Center in downtown Santa Monica. We'll be having another meeting of our Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee of the Recreation and Parks Commission. and we will be discussing the high rate of bicycle and pedestrian accidents in Santa Monica. So we'll have representatives from Santa Monica Police, the Seniors Commission, the Planning Commission, as well as fellow commissioners from Recreation and Parks will be there to also discuss these issues. So we are motivated. I believe that now we're starting to see no longer us screaming in the wilderness, but we're actually getting populated meetings where we are getting citizens who are motivated and enthusiastic about not only bike sharing, but finding ways to
Get around
share the road between bicycles, motorists, pedestrians.
Right.
And that includes classes on bike safety. That will include a number of different actions in the city of Santa Monica to make bicycles, as well as motorists, as well as pedestrians, an equal priority.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so there's a couple other people trying to call in. Let's get off the phone here, and I guess we'll try to call you back if we have any more questions.
Great. Good to talk to you this morning.
Good to talk to you. Thanks
Bye-bye.
for calling in. Thanks. Bye. Yeah, that was Phil Brock of the. He's the commissioner of Parks and Recreation in Santa Monica. I've been getting emails here of people trying to call in, which is probably someone here. So let's see who this is. This is Kill Radio. This is Bike Talk.
Hi, it's Todd
Hey,
from
Todd.
Baiku Bikes, and I'd like to bring in Ryan as well.
Okay.
So if you would hold, please.
Okay. Sure will. Todd is Baku Bikes, which is a firm that specializes in bike sharing schemes for Southern California beach cities, and I guess he's had some success in Manhattan Beach. So when he gets back on the line with Ryan, who's also
I had no luck getting him on. so.
okay. Yeah, I know he actually sent me an email, but I haven't really had time to check it. Okay. So you work for a firm that pushes new bike sharing programs to municipalities, right? Is that what it is?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, let me turn up the. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit better, yes.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So you work for a firm that specializes in bike sharing schemes.
Correct. We're actually the first company to actually launch or start a pilot program in Southern California for
Okay.
bike sharing.
So when you were starting this thing out, what were some of the priorities that you had to define for
Well-
bike sharing? I mean, infrastructure, maintenance. How do you deal with these things?
Well, let me actually start off, if you would, please, by the impetus for actually starting this. I was in Barcelona and actually saw their bike share program,
Okay.
which is called BSing. And behind Paris, it's one of the largest bike share programs. I believe there's about 6,000 bikes in Barcelona.
Wow.
And I was thinking, well, if it works in Barcelona, why not bring it to Southern California? Because the climate's nearly identical.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I actually have a partner, and we had determined that Manhattan Beach would be a good place to start this.
Uh-huh.
And Manhattan Beach, like Santa Monica that Mr. Brock was discussing before, is very fitness-oriented. And people like to ride their bikes along the beach. And it's a place that sets trends. So we had actually appeared in front of the city council in Manhattan Beach, I believe it was 3 times. And then we were granted the right to launch a pilot on the December 7th meeting of their city council.
Okay.
So we're actually in the process now of implementing the pilot. And we think that, it'll go over well. And one of the other places we're actually looking at is Santa Monica. We've actually had discussions with another member of their staff.
Is this a privately funded, privately funded, or is this where's the money coming from?
It is privately funded. In fact, there are only 2 other privately funded bike share programs in the United States.
Okay.
One is B-Cycle in Oahu,
Okay.
and the other is Deco Bike in Miami Beach.
Okay.
Actually, I can bring in Ryan right now if that would be possible.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Okay, hang on.
Ryan is involved with engineering and development and set up, I guess, working on a control and locking mechanism for bikes. So there's a lot of technical challenges that he has to figure out. I guess I should tell you guys, there's a chat over on killradio.org if you go to
Okay,
chat.
Ryan's joining us.
Oh, hi, Ryan.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks, Todd, for setting that up and bringing it in.
No problem.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yep, I got everybody.
Okay, perfect.
Great. So as we were discussing, there are only 2 privately funded bike share programs in the United States. One is in Oahu, which is about 100 bikes, and then Deco Bike, which is launching in Miami Beach, which is 1,000 bikes.
Oh, wow.
And so when Phil Brock had mentioned B-Cycle before in Denver, that's one of the places we'd actually looked at in terms of their success. A lot of these are actually publicly funded programs. So the publicly funded programs are great for cities that have money.
Right.
But as you know, in California, where our budgets are basically non-existent.
Right.
So we figured that's the other thing that we have going for us is that if you have a privately funded bike share program, you're going to have a higher likelihood of acceptance by city councils.
Yeah.
What's interesting is actually the funding for a lot of these publicly funded bike share systems are actually coming from federal funding. This has been done in Boston, Chattanooga, Minneapolis, where usually a nonprofit or a city government will apply to the federal government for they're called congestion mitigation and air quality grants, CMAQ grants, or other sources of federal highway grant funding. And they try to compile these pools of money and use that for the capital purchase of the equipment. So, yeah, he's very much right that there's been a trend over the last couple of years for there to be this kind of publicly funded bike share. And generally, it's not coming from the coffers of the city itself. It's coming from the federal government. San Francisco has put together $7.9 million. That's partially federally funding and partially regional funding and local funding. New York City, on the other hand, they didn't get any sort of federal funding. Their RFP is specifically a privately funded and operated bike share system.
And that's supposed to be 10,000 bikes, correct?
I mean, in the scope, in the initial study that the planning department in New York did, they called for an initial launch of 10,000 bikes to launch with enough density and scale to be a real, public transit alternative. They've not really required that, but that is kind of their vision, and it's up to the private enterprises to put in their proposals. Those proposals are actually due next week, so we'll see kind of what shakes out from that. But yeah, basically, bike share is a three-year-old industry, 4 years at the most. I mean, there were some earlier systems in Europe, but it didn't really take off until after Vélib in Paris in 2007. Mm-hmm. So, as it's coming to North America, people are exploring different business models. They're trying to find out how do you pay for it and how do you sustainably operate it. The thing is, the equipment that B-Cycle and Bixie and these major providers provide is very expensive. The per bike startup cost for a bike share system, a traditional bike share system, is $4,000 to $5,000 per bicycle to get something going. So if you're talking even about a small system of, say, 300 bikes, that's roughly $1.5 million in capital expense to get that going, which is what's made it so challenging and difficult for it to kind of take off and go mainstream.
Yeah. I can see how that's a big deal. It's not really just buying a bunch of bikes and then sticking them somewhere and then hoping people use them. There's a lot of...
So I'm actually curious, Todd, as you're kind of pursuing this pilot in for-profit kind of model or at least privately funded model, have you looked at kind of the major platforms, the B-Cycle and the Bixie, or have you thought about which technology you're going to use?
We've actually talked to 3 companies. Those are 2 of the companies we've looked at, and there's a third company called EcoTrip, which is based out of San Diego, and they've focused on college campuses. UC Irvine has an implementation, and Yale has an implementation. You're absolutely right. I mean, the problem is the capital expenditure at the beginning of the process. Mm-hmm. And what we've calculated, and it's one of the issues that we're running into, is the number of bikes you have to have out there to actually do well and break even and attract venture capital funding is about 8,000 to 10,000 bikes.
Uh-huh.
So you really have to have massive scale on a private basis in order to make this work.
Right.
And one thing I like about your solution is it is a low-cost solution, and I think there are some obstacles you guys have to overcome as well too.
Right.
But I like yours because it is a lower-cost option, and it's something that you could actually smaller cities could implement right away.
Right.
We haven't actually just talked about Ryan's involvement with bike sharing. So do you want to go ahead and explain real quick what you do?
Yeah. I guess this is the best time. So the other systems have these docking stations where you park up the bike, and then you have the kiosk where you check out the bike. And it's very reliable, and you have good point-to-point transportation. Unfortunately, that's where most of the infrastructure costs come from. That's why there's such high capital costs.
Right.
It's not that the bicycle themselves are $5,000 per bike. It's all this other infrastructure that goes with it.
Right.
So what I thought, my original idea, starting about over 2 years ago, was rather than having all the intelligence and security and authorization systems on these racks, on these stations, why not put that on the bicycle? Put the walking system on the bicycle, put the communications on the bicycle, and then you have the flexibility to kind of lock up to any regular bike rack. So, you could still set up hub locations that are kind of centers for redistribution and where users always know where they can find a bike. But if the user takes a bike out of a hub, they can also ride around and drop it off at any bike rack in their town. So you remove that kind of major capital investment of all those docking stations and the kiosks, and you replace it with bike racks. You're creating a shared infrastructure. With traditional bike share, you are having a separate infrastructure that only benefits the cyclists and the bike share users. So I saw one of the questions that were meant to be addressed by this talk was, what do cyclists think about bike share? People that are already biking. I think with our approach, I think it's something that they would like because we're creating new parking opportunities for all cyclists, because anything installed that benefits bike share bikes could also benefit the private bike. So basically, we have mobile communications and a computer, a processor on the bike itself that you can make your request using your mobile phone. It sends that request to the central server. The central server sends your PIN code to the bike, and then you enter your PIN code and you're on your way.
Ryan, if I might ask you, your system sounds a little bit more closely to align with Zipcar, where it's actually the technology is embedded in the car or it's embedded on the bike versus, say, a fixed station, which gives you more flexibility, correct?
Right. Yeah, I go through my whole spiel of who we are and what we do. At the end of it, somebody's like, oh, so Zipcar for bikes. So it is very much similar to that. There's a few differences in that Zipcar, as of now anyway, they don't offer one-way rental. And theirs is something that you book in advance. I think for us, we want to have more spontaneous rentals. You can only reserve a bike maybe 15 minutes prior to actually picking a bike up, and you want to accommodate one-way rental as well. So there's some differences in execution, but in terms of the technology involved, it's very, very similar. All the same type of hardware components and a similar type of software.
How would the electronics and everything on the bicycle be powered?
Hub dynamo, so basically a dynamo charger that is repowering the batteries. Now, we are currently testing it. The output of the dynamo seems like it's going to be enough. We still have more testing to do. It's not a very consistent power, though. If you're going very slow, you're producing a little power. If you're going really fast, you're really cranking it up.
Right.
So we have to kind of clean up that energy and rectify it. But it seems like that's going to be enough. Now, if it's not, if we need additional charging, I've talked to a few companies that provide small solar panels where we could attach a solar panel to the lockbox as well. But if at all possible, we want to run purely off the dynamo. So we have the bike, we have technology powered by the bike for bike technology.
Right. That sounds great. How if the bike wasn't used for a while and the battery ran out, would you be able to unlock it, or would it be stuck there?
So we're going to have alerts built in. So if a bike sits and the battery slowly drains down, once it gets to like 25, 30%, whatever it's going to be, that's where you kind of need field staff to go out and swap out battery packs.
Okay.
So this is not going to be a complete kind of just put it out there and it takes care of itself. There's going to be maintenance. There's going to be redistribution to some extent. And there's going to be, the necessary, swapping out of batteries when something gets low.
Right.
So yeah, one of the major issues we want to tackle is the redistribution of bikes. That's one of the biggest problems with the existing system. First of all, it's
You're breaking up a little bit.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So for the existing systems, you need to have approximately 1.5 parking spaces for every bicycle. So you need that overage. And even with that, often you'll have one station completely full and another completely empty.
Right.
So they're constantly rebalancing these bikes. And that's part of the large operating costs of this type of system. One thing we want to do is use the users themselves and put incentives in there for them to help us do that redistribution. So if you return to a hub location, there'll be no additional charge. If you take the bike and you bike directly to your house and lock up outside of a hub, you pay a small additional charge, maybe $2. And that gets posted back to the map, and the next user to take that bike and return it to a hub gets a $2 credit. So you kind of have the users themselves have incentives to bring the bikes back to where we want them.
Right.
And if we can successfully execute that, we'll eliminate one of the major operating costs of a traditional system.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I think the everybody that is looking at bike sharing, I mean, first of all, most cities love the idea and want to do it. And I think Santa Monica would be great, and there's a lot of places in Southern California that would be great. But the biggest challenge is who pays for it and who runs it. So, if we can kind of figure out a way to do that, do it affordably, and by bringing down the capital costs, make it something that doesn't need this gross subsidy, I think we have a good chance of emerging as the winner in all this. Because there's a lot of companies that are kind of getting in the space, but nobody has yet taken our approach.
Uh-huh.
Well, I would agree that that what you're saying about the challenges in terms of paying, but I also think there's other factors that are involved here in terms of allowing success for bike sharing. Mm-hmm. And, one of which is the culture out here. I mean, it is not a culture, people love their automobiles out here, and
sure.
It's easy for them to jump in a car, and there's parking is plentiful. And the other thing is, it's a convenience factor, right? So if it's just as easy to jump in a car and go 5 or 10 minutes, a lot of people will actually do that. Unlike New York, where parking is a major mess, Boston, parking is a major mess. Here you have that. The other thing that we found is that that Seattle had actually come up with a plan for bike sharing, and they identified 12 factors that lead to 12 metrics that lead to success in bike sharing, which are really interesting. Topography is one that people just don't think about. But people don't want to ride their bikes if they have to ride uphill half the time.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And things like bicycle-friendly streets, and density of population and tourist attractions, all these things that come into play.
Climate could be a big one as well.
Climate could be a big one. Although if you look at the most successful bike sharing program in North America, it's in Montreal, and Bixby operates from, I believe it's April or May to November. So there's about 5 months that people don't ride bikes there. Yet they have a tremendous number of subscribers. And part of that is culture. And part of that's topography and the way the streets are laid out there, and part of it's parking. And, there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not these programs will take off
sure.
or not.
In Montreal, like Paris, and I think like Barcelona, they didn't have a huge bike culture when they got into the game. It's something that Bike Share has helped promote and cultivate the bike culture. They definitely had something, and I know Southern California is extremely auto-centric, but I think there is probably some level of bike culture already existing in Southern California that you can take to build on. And when you have hundreds of thousands of public bikes out there, mm-hmm. it raises awareness, and it kind of slowly will shift the culture. Yes, there are going to be the people that are going to really cry out if a bike share is implemented there. But over time, I like the example that about a year ago in Denver, a politician that was running for office called bike share a communist plot, a UN plot. And you know what? From both sides, from the left, from the right, everybody called him a quack and distanced himself, and it really hurt him politically.
Uh-huh.
So it just shows that there's support on both sides of the fence for bike share, and people realize that it is, getting more people biking is in general a good thing. Now it's just how do we execute it? How do we do it affordably? How do we do it so that doesn't have to pay millions of dollars for just a few hundred or a few thousand bikes?
Right. Well, the other thing, Ryan, that, and I hope you all don't mind us going back and forth.
No, I don't.
This adds to the conversation. Is New York and a lot of these places are very different from Southern California in that somebody once described Los Angeles as a bunch of arteries in search of a heart. And the way you look at that is there are a lot of municipalities out here. We've been already discussed Santa Monica, we've discussed L.A., Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach. All these places, Hawthorne, Gardena, all these places are their own separate fiefdoms and their own government.
Yep.
And so one of the challenges that we're finding is getting our way through government agencies and city managers' offices, city councils. It took us 15 months to get the approval of Manhattan Beach. If you can imagine, with 12 different cities that we wanted to implement this in order to have a comprehensive system, how long that would take just to get the approval.
And this isn't talking about they're not subsidizing it all. This is just allowing you to operate. This is just
you have the right to operate a pilot program within our city limits.
Sure.
And it's one of the things I think that's unique to Southern California, that unless we have a comprehensive bike share program and a comprehensive bicycling program, it's going to be tough.
Sure.
The area that we're operating in, which is called the South Bay, which is Manhattan, Hermosa, and Redondo, received a $250,000 grant from LA County to actually implement a master bike share program or master bike plan. And that includes things like, bike routes, bike sharing, these other things. And you actually have consultants that are involved in actually implementing this. That's a really good step in the process. But, circumnavigating your way not only through each city, but the county, dealing with Metro, which is, dealing with light rail, all these, agencies have to have a say in this. And I think Phil Brock from Santa Monica pointed that out. It's frustrating in order to get that going.
Yeah, I could see.
But prior to working on SOBI, I actually worked for the Department of Transportation in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So I myself am an urban planner. So I realized, kind of navigating this is going to be difficult. If we can eliminate as many of the unanswered questions as possible, I think it's going to be a lot easier. I've spoken with some folks in Hoboken city government, and if we could offer a financially sustainable model that won't cost the city a couple $1 million in initial capital outlay, they'd want to do something. And there's a lot of other places that are the same way. So, you're still going to, especially in an area like California, you're going to have to go through a number of different bureaucracies to launch a full system. But I think as it becomes more mainstream and more people understand the concept and what you're asking for, especially if they don't have to pay for it, they're going to be more likely to do it.
Yeah, I would agree.
They may want a cut of revenues, they may want something, I don't know, but they're going to be more likely to approve it. And they should be, because we're serving and providing an extra service, an extra public transportation option that doesn't, if we can provide an extra form of transportation that doesn't cost them anything and supports the buses and trains or whatever else the region might have, that's a huge public service. And if you can increase services without increasing the cost, that's what every city should be looking for. Cool. It's really interesting what you're doing down there, and what's your time frame for trying to get something going in Manhattan Beach?
We're looking 3 to 4 months from now. We want to hit it for the summer, to get good data.
How many bikes are you trying to put out originally?
We're actually going to only start with by 2 or 3 stations to start, get some data.
Okay.
Where we did get the right to actually operate is right next to the pier.
Okay.
So, and we are, and as Ryan mentioned, we are splitting revenue. 10% goes to the city. One of the issues we've run into, though, is local bike shops are concerned and opposed that this is going to perhaps cut into their business.
Right. People aren't going to buy new bikes because you could just rent one or have a bike share.
Yeah. One of the things I think is missing, though, is we're not really going after the tourist market.
Right.
And I think that's a misconception with bike share programs. It is about commuting.
Right.
Ryan understands that, and I think the folks
Sure.
that understand bike sharing understand that. This isn't, hey, I want to go down and ride a bike, and I'll rent a bike for a day. This is getting people out of their cars and commuting using bicycles.
Right. Get people moving.
It's something designed for many short trips as opposed to a 3 or 4 hour rental.
Exactly.
And it's generally priced that way. But, there's going to be some overlap there. The experience out of Paris is that bike shops actually sold more bikes after the institution of bike share. So it got more people interested in biking and more people saying, hey, I want to own my own private bike.
Right.
However, if your business is exclusively tourist rental and you're pricing, like in New York, pricing for rentals $40 or $50 a day, there may be a change to your business model. That is probably a real thing that you're facing. But if you offer other services and you offer a different product, then you can still make a go of it. But yeah, I mean, a caller earlier today had said that that's part of the realities of living in a free market society.
Right.
You're going to face competition and new alternatives, and you have to distinguish yourself.
Exactly.
I would think that some of the bike shops would actually even want to get involved with maybe having a kiosk by their shop.
Well, we actually had the idea of getting them involved with the maintenance of the bikes, servicing the bikes. I think, though, they're very comfortable. I mean, some of these have been operating 30 and 40 years. They're very comfortable in what they know.
Right. They don't want to really change their business model.
And change is a threat, exactly. And we've been trying to bring them along. And I think, Ryan's right that as the more and more that people understand what this is about, the less resistance you'll find. It's getting to that stage where the education process, and that's tough. That's really tough.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the trend seems to be pretty firmly in place now, that over the next 5 years, you're going to see this continuing to grow. And we still don't know. We're still kind of figuring it out as we go along. But the trend is pretty firmly in place now. In 2007, around the time of Galib, there was about 17 bike-sharing systems around the world. And now we're over 200. So you have, almost, 10 times as many systems over just 3 years. And more than that, you see at planning conferences, when you talk to mayors, when you talk to people in transportation and urban planning, bike sharing is kind of the new hot solution.
Uh-huh.
Just like bus rapid transit was a few years ago, now everybody's talking about bike sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see this continue to grow. We're going to see this continue to expand. And I believe that is kind of a future of urban transportation.
Well, yeah, and I think one thing that's not been mentioned is this whole first mile, last mile issue, where the station or the bike has to be, close enough that walking to the bike makes sense, getting on the bike makes sense, and leaving it wherever it is. Where if it's, a light rail system, there has to be a station there. With your system, which is nice, is you can pretty much leave it anywhere that you can lock it.
Right.
I think one of the issues that I think you all have thought about is you have to have a phone to enable this, correct? Or you actually have to do this online versus going up and walking up and doing it. Is that correct?
Yes and no, but I mean, you could also have a call-in number and set up an account that way. It depends what you think your user base is. If you think you're dealing a lot with long-term users and residents. Hello?
Hello?
Did we lose somebody?
I think I'm still here.
Hello?
You have everybody?
I think so, yeah. Can we hear everybody?
Okay, sorry about that. It made a really weird digital noise. People don't have the opportunity to sign up ahead of time and get their accounts created. And you do also want to accommodate tourists and accommodate city users. One way I was thinking of doing this, rather than having these huge kiosks on the street taking up the public right away, what if you have little iPad kiosks at bike shops, at restaurants, at bars, for people to kind of register and enter the system that way?
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of ways for getting people on the system that don't necessarily involve these kind of kiosks, and the other systems are based on an RFID card. So you don't get your account and get an RFID card right away. If you want some users, you have to wait for that package.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit. It's a little hard to hear.
Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
But yeah, so there's plenty of ways of kind of people bringing in. And the other concern I often hear is, well, what if you don't have a mobile phone, or what if you don't have a smartphone? And we're going to have a keypad interface on the box, so even if you don't have any phone, you'll still be able to get access to the bikes. So we want to kind of design for the future, which is, more than half of all phones now being shipped are smartphones. So we want to kind of recognize that trend. But at the same time, if people aren't using that technology, we need to have them be able to get on the system as well.
Right. Plus, people that are visiting from another country may not have the ability to use their cell phones here.
Sure. Or they have to pay crazy amounts to do that.
Right, exactly.
But, there's definitely, for us, it's going to be a learning process. We haven't implemented the system yet. We have, our first pilot is going to be at Indiana University next fall, and we're going to be doing some testing at that school this spring. And we're in talks with a couple other places, 2 other cities that I think we have a pretty good chance of launching at. So we're going to get these first few test markets, and we're going to work very closely with the local operators, and we're going to work out the kinks. But, that's the same type of challenges that the station-based people are facing as well. The challenges of redistribution, maintenance, account creation, all those things. It's such a new industry that no matter what type of technology you use, you're going to have those kind of struggles.
Well, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. One of the nice things about stations it's actually an advertisement. They're really well marked. How do you actually advertise your system, where the locks are fairly small?
Just to break in here real quick, I'm going to try to get Michael on the phone, or through Skype. You guys can keep talking, but you might hear some weird, funny noises.
Okay.
Like that.
I hear him. Hello?
I can hear you.
Did you hear a lot of static, though?
I do, yeah.
Okay. I don't think that's going to work.
I might be able to conference Michael in, or perhaps Todd can.
Yeah, like through a three-way or something?
Yeah, why don't you try, Ryan? Well, why don't you try, because that way I can't, actually.
Sure, I can. So, Todd, you keep talking and hold down the fort, and I'll see if I can bring Michael in.
Do you have his phone number?
I do, from the email, I think. Just give me a second, okay?
Okay. Okay, so we're trying to get you on three-way, Michael. Okay. Yes, this is really interesting stuff. So a lot of things I haven't really even thought about before. A lot of good points are being brought up.
We have spent the last year and a half just really analyzing the market and determining what the chances are for success. And I think one of the things that forces you to do this is you're dealing with people's money, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You don't necessarily have to do that if you're talking, even though you do have to provide justification if you're in the public space.
Uh-huh.
If you're in the private space, you've got investors' money and your own money actually tied up in this, and you really have to make sure it works.
I think we have success.
Okay,
Michael, are you here?
Yes, I am. Thank you for calling.
Okay,
no problem.
Everybody can hear everybody.
Who's there?
This is Reverend Mook.
This is Todd, and looks like we have Ryan and you.
Hey, great stuff. Thank you for going through this so thoroughly. That was a great, full of insight and enthusiasm, and it really got me interested in these schemes. It's very true to say that these schemes are an additional transportation option in a larger mix, and that they produce a service. And I didn't want anything else to be transpired, except that when the money is being spent on something, we need to have somehow a way of evaluating if this is an efficient way of creating it.
Yeah, that's actually what I was just saying in terms of this. It's a much different perspective you're looking at if it's a private investment versus, say, the public's money.
Right. There was a sense in which he was speaking, for instance, of some of the projects being funded with federal money, and what I heard there in the background kind of was saying, oh, well, if it's federal money, then it's not so important to decide if it's used for a good purpose or if it's the best use of that money, because federal money may only be available for such kind of a path or this or that. And in that sense, we kind of give up our best judgment.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of what happens. Like, I was down in Chattanooga. They got $1.5 million to implement a bike sharing system, which is great, and it's a great opportunity to promote cycling. On the other hand, they have almost no cycling infrastructure and very little cycling culture. So is that the best use of money to spend $1.5 million to pay Bixie, the company in Montreal, to put in the hardware, or is there other things that can be done with that money that would be a better end result for the cycling community?
I mean, you're talking my what I want to say, because it needs to be somehow embedded in a comprehensive program, which doesn't only consist of software and hardware, but which also consists of education and encouragement and all the other things in order to make. But there was one point where I really got a little bit moving on my chair when I think it was Todd you saying that these bike share programs are really for commuters. And I'm not quite sure if I see that like this, because the commuter, is in the normal scheme of things, goes to work and comes home again in the evening, and that puts 2 trips on a bike. And 2 trips on a bike by one person is not really commuting. It is not the best use of such a bike. That's not sustainable.
Well, I don't know, because
you could pay this guy a taxi ride and you would get off cheaper probably. But if you only have these 2 trips on it. So what you need to find is a situation where the bikes are constantly busy and constantly being used. And that's a different kind of use, when a commuting use which goes from a train station to an office complex.
Well, and I think, Phil Brock had mentioned it earlier. I don't think it's just going to work and coming back. It might be during your lunch hour taking a ride from the Yahoo building in Santa Monica down to the 3rd Street Promenade. And a lot of it also comes down to parking availability. And, there's areas, and I'm referring specifically to Santa Monica, there's areas where people live that it's too far to walk and too close to drive. And so bicycling is the perfect mix in that, in terms of, the convenience factor. And a lot of this does have to do with the convenience factor. And
if you hear about in California, a lot of the arguments for why people don't bike to work is they're like, well, what if I get there and I have other meetings to go to? So, the idea of having something that's flexible and they can take a one-way trip, or maybe at the end of the day they want to bike home, but they don't necessarily want to bike to work, it just creates a lot more flexibility. And the idea is that it's not each bike is only being used twice for the origin and destination. It's that if one bike is shared by 10 people, I need that bike from 8 to 9, and somebody else needs it from 10 to 11, and all of a sudden you have each bike making 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trips, and that is an efficient use of resource.
Yeah, but that's where you want to be. But if you're in a commuter situation, or if you're at the end of a light rail line or something like that, and you have very distinct flows of traffic going one way in the morning and going the other way in the evening, then maybe you can add an occasional lunchtime trip. That's difficult to construct in a sustainable manner. I mean, then you talk more about a situation that the city of Santa Monica has implemented for its own employees. They have 12 bikes there which the employees can use, and they use them for their trips within the city, and that's a perfectly useful thing, and it doesn't cost much more than the cost of the bike itself.
Well, and corporate campus is being spread around as well too. We've talked to Northrop Grumman here, which is the largest employer in our area, and their buildings are spread out between 2 cities. So if you get people on bikes in between the two, I think that's helpful.
I think what you're talking about is our land use pattern in general is a bad one. So we're trying to retrofit a very kind of urban solution to land use patterns that aren't necessarily set up for that. So, what you need really is mixed use. You need density. You need many different types of trips. And unfortunately, the way we've set up most of our American communities, we don't have that. We have a very specific type of commuter pattern. We have these bedroom communities on the outside of the city, and then we have jobs on the inside. And anymore, we have jobs scattered as well. So we don't have these kind of dense urban uses. Now, that means that bike share is not the best fit for every place, but for downtown Santa Monica, where you do have some mixed use and you do have people living there, maybe it does make sense.
Maybe it does make sense. But what I want to underline is that we have something like trip structure. I mean, what kind of trips do you have? Do you have going one way and the other way? And depending on the trip structure, you need to evaluate if you need all the overhead, the ability for the bike to be shared by another person. Or if you could just leave it at the hotel and the next day someone else checks it out from the hotel again. If it's a hotel or if it's an employer or something. Because most of the cost comes into it produced by the ability of anyone else to be able to rent it. But if you don't have other people who want to use that bike, if it's kind of always the same people who are using it, like the employer-based bike rental, then you can get it so much cheaper, and you still get a lot of bike trips out of it.
Isn't this system and this program similar to the airline industry, in that you've got very high setup cost and capital expenditure cost,
and you have to get the most use out of
it? But it's about yield management, and those who understand the airline industry know that unless your planes are full, you're losing money. Correct?
Right.
It's the cost of fuel and the cost of the plane. And
the airline industry has always lost money. They're only losing money.
Well, Southwest Airlines does a very good job of making money. And it's because they've thought things out and they've been very analytical in how they've attacked each market. And I think good management and good strategic plans will make most businesses fly. And poor ones will, again, kill a business. And that's why we see a problem in the airline industry. I think the same thing goes for bike sharing. If it is not well thought out, and if it's not part of the 12 metrics that have been identified that lead to success, your chances of success in bike sharing are limited if you're a private enterprise.
You're going to look at, as a private enterprise, you're going to look at the markets that have the best mix of features, and that's where you're going to target. And then, what I've been thinking is maybe there is a way for other communities that want bike share to somehow support that cost and subsidize that cost. But if you're looking at purely from private enterprise, you're going to only be targeting that place with the best mix of solutions. I would like to point out real quick, though, that compared to the capital investment necessary for an airline, for even a bus route, bike share is a very, very small drop in the bucket. So if you're in a city and you're looking at putting in a new train line, for example, or dropping in a new bus route, it's a lot larger investment than the investment that's required to launch a bike share system. So from a public standpoint, in bike share as a transportation option, it's actually a much more affordable transportation option than what else is out there.
If we focus on the capital costs, and if we, and there may be other, talking about bicycle education and encouragement programs, talking about really sticking their head out and saying, okay, we want everybody to consider seriously if they don't want to, what they could do with their bike in their garage, and we want to hear from them and we want to assist them. This would be also a costly program, but not that costly really, and you could have a great number of tricks. Activating all these bikes which are forgotten in the garage is also a worthwhile project, isn't it? And it's in a sense, we're talking about putting 100 or so bikes, fresh and new and newly painted, out on the street, and we're forgetting about millions of bikes which everybody forgets in their own garage. And that is not that the bike sharing program that we should act and where we should put our attention and get people back on the bikes who have forgotten they have one.
Right.
Well, I think there's an issue with that as well too. One, we're assuming that everybody has a bike. Two, a lot of people live in multi-dwelling units that don't have bikes. And the third part of this is the convenience factor. And we've actually done some anecdotal research with people, and that's kind of an oxymoron, anecdotal research, where people are not exactly excited about maintaining their own bike and then riding it one way and having to find a place to lock it up and watch it and do the other things versus a place where they can just park it into a station and make it work easily and have it.
It gives you the feeling of being serviced a little bit if you can interact with a bike sharing program. It gives you a good feeling because it feels like the city is doing something.
Right. Well, there's a common good to it. Exactly.
but it also deprives you of the ability to be an expert of your own bike. People are
but the thing is, not everybody wants to be that. Not everybody wants to be that expert. And actually, if you look at cyclists in Amsterdam and Copenhagen, I think much like myself, I don't necessarily want to know maintain a bike and take care of a bike. I just want to know that I have access to a mechanic, and when something goes wrong, I get it fixed. I mean, there are the people that really love the bike and really want to know every aspect and build their own frames and do all that. But there's a lot of people that see it as a transportation device and want to have that type of thing taken care of for them. And by doing a really well-run bike share system, you're even going a step further, saying, hey, you don't even need to own the bike, just pay us for access to it. So I think
I would go back to someone like Ivan Illich, who's a sociologist, and who would answer back here and say there is a great benefit if people own the expertise that is necessary for them to maintain whatever tool it is they have to deal with, and whatever profession comes between the user and his tool and occupies that relationship, distances their own abilities is side of the modernization process.
Sure, but I mean, if you look across almost every industry, there's been a trend towards specialization, and there's been a trend towards services. So while it's probably good to cultivate that knowledge and build up that local knowledge and get everybody doing it, the fact is, maybe it's out of human nature or whatever, people really appreciate convenience, and they're busy with their own lives, and they don't necessarily have the time or desire to become bike mechanics. And that's the whole... That's the economy that we live in.
Direction, but it is related to the topic, because you say, Todd said there's a convenience factor, and I want to counter that and say there is an empowerment factor for all the inconvenience that goes along with fixing your own flats. That empowerment, part of the positive experience of something. You can do this. You own your bike for totally. It's totally transparent to you, and you can may even be able to shorten your chain. Whatever. Or you go to Bike-O-Wave and they help you.
Well, I would say that people are getting more busy, not less busy, and they have less time to actually do those type of things. The other thing is, in cities that have much higher bike ownership rates, for example, Copenhagen and Amsterdam, maybe even Paris, I believe, they have bike sharing, and it obviously works. The question I would have is, if it works there, why wouldn't it work here, a place that has less bikes? Fewer bikes. It would probably
work.
Yeah, I think
it could work if the density is right.
Yeah, we identified there's 12 factors, and those are really, really solid factors in terms of what'll work and what won't work. I'd be glad to share them with people if they're interested.
Yeah, I'd actually like to know what the 12 factors are, because that kind of starts defining something
that
Mike was talking about earlier about priorities.
Okay. The first one is population density, non-institutionalized group quarter housing, which is basically multi-dwelling units that aren't part of an institution or a college. Job density, retail job density, commute trip reduction companies, tourist attractions, park/recreation areas, topography, regional transit stations, bicycle-friendly streets with bicycle lanes, and local transit stops. That's a pretty comprehensive list. And, a place like, we've identified that Santa Monica has probably 9 out of those, or 10 out of those 12.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Miami Beach, which is where Deco Bike is going, and has probably 9 or 10 out of those 12. A city like Los Angeles, a large city like Los Angeles, and when we're talking about Los Angeles, there are many different areas, they might have 5 or 6 out of those 12. They just don't. The problem with Los Angeles is half of those things aren't even there. Right. And that is a problem. It is a problem in order to get this. I'd love to see Los Angeles adopt one, but they don't have a lot of streets with bicycle lanes, and topography is tough here, and you don't have as many commute trip reduction companies. And
if we took this whole question a little bit a step back and said, bike share program, wonderful thing, but if public investment comes into play, then it should well be going to bike share programs, but it should be balanced with investment into private ownership, private bike ownership, or private bike education, or encouragement programs which are not related to this bike share.
Michael, I would agree. The reason why, unfortunately, that's not the reality is it's the nature of these grants that are issued. These grants are generally for capital purchases for infrastructure. Okay, so they are designated that. They're not designated for operations costs. They're generally not designated for marketing costs and other sort of costs. These are the same type of dollars that would pay for, I guess, new highway construction. Or coming from some of the same sort of pools of money. So it's the funding source that's been tapped into kind of limits the way that these funds can actually be used.
That's a very interesting contribution, and I think there's a little bit of movement in terms of LA Metro, which does these calls for projects and things like that, and finances some of. They have increased their funding for these educational things, but this puts us in this place where kind of the political structure or the funding structure privileges these projects versus the other projects, which are more private bike ownership and private education programs for the public, and does not support those second part of
right.
It would be interesting if they actually, instead of just actually giving grants for these programs, that they had some type of federal matching funds in order to get these things off the ground. Because to actually prove that you can actually support a private bike share program or a public bike share program, to me that would help in terms of offsetting the capital expenditure cost. And you can actually prove that you either have sponsors or advertisers or private investment that can actually run and operate these systems.
I think there's value, and there's value for public money to be put into these things. Mm-hmm. We're just working with the existing frameworks, and I know that cities are out there looking for how do we get money, and a few of them found these CMAQ grants, and a few of them found another pool of grants, and they're just scrambling to find whatever they can do within the existing framework. I mean, now if we're talking about creating new policies and new laws, I'm all for it, but we all know that the political process to do something like that takes a lot of time. And I think after we see some of these early successes, you may see some sort of bike share legislation or bike share grant pool created. But for right now, they're working with the existing framework, which is not really, it wasn't set up with this type of system in mind.
Yeah, I agree.
In Los Angeles city council election now, and who knows what the outcome is, and if we have a bicycle advocate on the city council, so maybe it won't take that long,
Yeah.
Well, I want an advocate on the city council. I also want the city manager to see the vision that this is a great thing to do, because that's actually I'm an elected official, and I know that most of the work gets done not by the city councils or school boards, but it gets done by the professionals, the managers that want to see the vision of something like this implemented. And city councils provide the oversight in order for this to happen or not. And if the city manager does not buy into a system like this, your chances of getting it passed are slim.
Sure. And it varies from region to region.
What he can do.
Yeah, it does. It does, but in general, things don't even get on the agenda to get discussed until, it goes through the city manager's office or it gets pushed from a city council person to the city manager's office.
Right. In the case of New York, I mean, it's kind of coming out of the DOT, the Department of Transportation, but that's because we have a huge DOT. There's probably some other states that may not even have a large formal DOT. But yeah, you're right. It's coming from the working professionals that, be it city manager, be it Department of Transportation, they see the value in it, and they're generally the ones pushing for it and making the case to city councils and mayors and everybody else.
I would agree.
Todd's list of criteria is a very important one, which educates these people. The fact that this is not about, it feels so good to be in Paris, or can't we do a little bit of old Europe in this country here, and gets it out on a factual ground and puts numbers on the tables and helps to decide if it's going to take off or not. And things like trip structure and density and usage rates and things like that are very important.
I think part of the objection, though, too, is the what's perceived as the gross amount of cost for these things, and that's something that I'm trying to address by designing a system that brings technology into it to lower those costs, lower that barrier to entry, and in some way that's what Todd's doing too, in terms of trying to build a for-profit model so that it's not going to cost the city a few $1 million to get something going? Is there a way to justify it's easier to justify if it's not that public burden? So I think between us driving down the cost and several people, I know many people are looking at ways of doing this as a for-profit enterprise and a privately funded enterprise. Those two factors, if those work, we may see kind of a slow death of this subsidized bike share model that's out there that has this very expensive equipment that is paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see where the technology takes us in the next 3 to 5 years.
Exciting times.
Yeah, it's
It was Bike Talk without music, was it?
no, there wasn't very much music at all. I thought I was going to play some
We
stuff.
we still have Bike Talk on?
Yeah, Bike Talk's on.
I think so. Not.
Yeah. Well, are you guys?
Lou?
I think we're all in agreement this has to happen. The question is how we get it to make sense. So.
Right. I think there needs to be a strong criteria established. Those 12 points that were pointed out earlier.
Are we on the radio or not?
Yeah, we're on.
Good.
It's still on?
Yeah, you guys can hear everybody, right?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
This is a 4-way conference call using 3 different technologies. So
Yeah,
I wasn't sure if it was still working.
no. Well, you guys are going out, so we're going out over the air, so everyone can hear everything everybody's saying.
So Todd, I want to connect with you later offline. I'd like to talk more about what you're doing and how we might, maybe pilot something together in the future.
That sounds great.
Good.
And Michael, next time I come out to Los Angeles, we'd have to connect. And I really like what you guys are doing with sustainable streets, and I want to help out in what way I can to make that a reality.
Great. Social bikes. Okay. Thank you for everybody for coming in here and sharing their thoughts. I think it's a very good discussion to have. And my concern was just that we need to get some facts on the table and not kind of be enthusiastic about something where we don't have the facts and just feel good and
right.
cool.
Sure.
And I think I second that. And I think if you're too, I want to use the word Pollyannish going into this, and it doesn't succeed, you don't have a lot of chances to implement this. And if it doesn't work once, don't fly, or these programs don't fly, people are going to become jaded really quickly that bike sharing doesn't work.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And they are very sensitive to it. I mean, I mentioned this essay in the London Review of Books where people just get so disappointed when they don't find the bike which is supposed to be there for them. It's very difficult to get that right. Yeah.
Or in Barcelona, you can't actually choose the bike you want. And that's a problem as well, too.
It just releases one?
It just releases one, and if you get released one that has a flat tire or something like that, then people are unhappy.
That's not a very good system.
No, it's not a good system, but it's an earlier system, so I think they're going to change that.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my weekend now.
And ride a bike.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you for calling.
Nice to talk to everybody, and Todd, let's keep in touch.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. Did everyone leave, or am I think that was the end of the conversation. Wow, that was a lot to think about. A lot of discussion going on there. That conversation was between Todd of I'm probably slaughtering the names, but Todd, he's the co-owner of Baku Bikes, and that's a firm that specializes in bike sharing schemes in Southern California. We had Ryan on the phone, who is involved with Social Bike in, I believe, New York. He's an engineering person working with engineering to make sure that the locking and control mechanisms, as well as other technical challenges, are addressed. And of course, we had Michael. He's the on the board of Sustainable Streets, formerly on the board of the LACBC, and he had a lot of great things to talk about. A lot of things for me to think about. I'm definitely leaving this show with different ideas on maybe the way that I think that bike sharing should be run. Of course, everybody has their own opinions on what it should be, how it should be run. So I guess in conclusion, there's still a lot of things that need to be a set of like a criteria set that everybody needs to agree on, and how these are going to be implemented. Again, as I believe Todd said, it's very important that this is we strike a home run at first, because if it doesn't work first time around, then people are going to become jaded very fast. So with that being said, if nobody else calls in, we're pretty much done here. We have 5 minutes left in the show, I guess. Again, like I said at the beginning of the show, there's 2 clocks in here, and they're both 10 minutes apart, so I don't exactly know what time it is. But it's probably the end of the show. So I'm just going to end the show up with a couple bike songs that I was going to try playing at the beginning of the show, but we got kicked off to an early start. Thank God, because there's a lot to talk about. This is my first time doing Bike Talk, so I wasn't exactly sure what to expect in the sense of even how the format of the show was going to go. So, yeah, let me just try to cue something up here on turntable number 1. This is a limited edition of 1,000 12-inch records, again, of home recordings and DIY recordings of bicycle songs. This is going to be Schwinn 24 from the Teen Titans, I think. Let me just make sure this is queued up. And after we're done with some tunes, we're just going to fade into the next show. Thanks for listening. This is Reverend Mook filling in for Nick at Bike Talk. Killradio.org. Yeah, these are bike songs. That was not actually the Teen Titans. That was the Paranoids with Go. I counted the tracks wrong. So if this doesn't all make you quit listening, you can stay tuned, because next is more bike songs off the same record. It kind of all sounds the same-ish. So if you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not. Killradio.org.
from the crap that the radio plays. All the young businessmen following trends. Another big investment, hoping you'll go far. So you got a guitar, you think you're a star. Don't mean nothing to me. On the wheel, where's the sincerity in music these days? 'Cause I get nothing from all the crap that MTV plays. Can't put a price tag on something that's true, but you kids keep on writing about people who just don't care about people who just don't care about.